Hello and welcome back to Red's podcast. I'm your host, Rentor Perez. I know last time we were here, we talked about Bob Marley and his effect on civic engagement, but we're going to be switching it up. We're going to be aiming for our Texas audience, which is our entire audience, because Mexicanos is the only one that's going to see this. So, hopefully, oh God. So, we are going to be going over political ideologies in Texas and how they shape the political landscape of America. So, that means we're going to be defining liberalism and conservatism, how it correlates with the respective parties, Democratic and Republic, and how it comes into play in how we express our political ideas in Texas. Okay, so first, let us go over the definitions of liberalism and conservatism. So, according to Oxford Dictionary, conservatism is the holding of political views that favor free enterprise, private ownership, and socially traditional ideas. Okay, so you can say red. That sounds like a whole lot of the same thing. Well, not really. But there is one major component that flows through all of these ideas. You. Not the government. You. Conservatism is very favored by the person who believes they should have a huge say in what happens. And obviously that comes into play with democracy too, with the democratic role of political views. But conservatism is a little bit trickier. So basically we believe in our rights to exercise free enterprise completely, with our own rights, with however we see fit. So Texas as a whole, we've been a red state for a while now. We're very business centric. You can see it everywhere. You even see it in the one horse cities, where you see a marketplace or a meat market or a trail with somebody trying to make up a stand for money. That's how it is. We don't really care for government intervention. We see that we are our own people and that we can basically apply these ideas through a business-centric lens to everything. So even traditional ideas. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're not exactly very progressive in terms of social navigation and culture. That's not a bad thing. No, it plays into how we react to things. Now let's look at the Oxford Dictionary for liberalism. Liberalism, a political and social philosophy that promotes individual rights, civil liberties, democracy, and free enterprise. So, if we can point out one thing, is there's one similarity between liberalism and conservatism, and that's free enterprise. We also believe in free enterprise and our right to exercise the right to make businesses, to make money, to profit off of ourselves, off of our own ventures. However, we do not view everything else in a business-centric lens the way we do for conservatism. It's very different. We also focus a lot on the ethics behind what goes on in our political society. So individual rights, civil liberties, democracy, that kind of plays into the opposite of the traditional ideas. It's constantly evolving, constantly changing about what we think about certain things, what we see fit. It's very big on government intervention, a major federal body, if you will. So even though it promotes individual rights, it's not just you. It talks about how the government can protect such individual rights. And that brings us up to our next point, the Republican and Democratic Party. So, Texas, it's no surprise. We love our guns, we love our business, we love our God. We have been a very major political role in America for a while now. We have been red for a very long time. We were deciding vote in a couple of elections here and there. I say here and there, but they were pretty major. So, one thing that we can take into consideration when it comes to discussing Republican and Democrat is one, where we live. We are Laredoans. We're brown. We're Mexican. We like chile relleno and rice and cumbias and drunk tios at barbecues. So, obviously, that's not the main idea, but what can you infer from this, from our Mexican population? Since it's the majority, it is one of the determining factors, and that we are living in the very few blue places in Texas. Our border region, our border city, is democratic in nature. So you can even see it in our city values, our city politics, and then you can see how it affects our voters' turnout with gerrymandering, political alignment, and when people go vote. So Texas is red, and what that means basically is majority of us are Republican. So basically, they believe in traditional social values that correspond to how we operate. So It's like going back to conservatism. Very business centric. We like making money, and we also believe, however, that it is our own right to deal with things the way we see fit. We don't like having government agencies come down and meddle with our affairs. So it's very different from the Democrat, where they believe in social reform, social programs. So going on to what Ms. Canales said earlier in the lectures, she mentioned that we do not run on a credit card, we run on a debit card. This is one of the major examples that come off of these platforms of how they conflict or they work with each other, or the opposite. Okay, so Texas runs off a debit card, meaning we do not spend money that we don't have. So since a majority of us are conservative, that means that social programs aren't exactly a major part of our system. It would be cool, but it's very different in terms of how we operate. So we're very business centric. So we save our money for the traditional things that we're used to: business, cities, applications of taxes, which we don't like either. Yet we still find a way to survive with that too. To go over some of the blue stuff that we have, Laredo is a huge idea. A huge idea of how the little blue that is left in Texas operates. And trust me, there's a prominent issue that comes with that. So as a border city, we act as one of the few bridge ports that we have lining up in South Texas. That means huge import-export, so great for the economy. We stimulate a lot of the economy for America, actually. So good on us. But there comes with the task. So the families of Mexico that would like to come and be a part of the American culture. So immigration. That is the big, oh my God, it's taboo. You can't talk about that. You can't have opinions on that. Blah, 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 blah. You live in Texas. If somebody climbed a fence, you wouldn't like it. Or you have the blue people saying, well, we were immigrants too. Blah, 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 blah. You can't be denying somebody's freedom to travel from one place to another. There are pros and cons from either side, but that's not what's important. The important is how these parties apply this idea and how they feel about it and how they deal with it as a whole. So let's talk about the blue in that case. So we, if you're like me, you have relatives across. I think everybody does at this point, So a lot of them don't have the guarantees of financial freedom that we do. So they feel like it's in their best interest to come over and travel to the States. And Laredo is probably their first big hit that they can probably make. So what this means is that the Democratic platform in Texas, with Laredo being an example, is we are pretty fond of immigration in terms of the people that come out, the paisanos. Sure, it's a little rocky, the process, but we don't mind because a lot of our family, that you can even argue that that's a part of conservatism that plays a role in the blue party. Because our traditional ideology of family and religion that comes with being a part of Mexican culture is playing into part of a democratic idea. Isn't that kind of crazy? How, it kind of realigns. That's a pun. I hope somebody appreciates that. So that is one real world example of how the democratic ideology is applied. Now, let's look at something else. Gun reform. So if you know Texas, we've had a couple of incidents in the past that have played into how we feel about guns or how people around America feel guns. But there are multiple factors that affect it. There's not a right answer. It's something that America needs to discover as a whole. But Texas will be a huge part of that discussion. So the couple incidents happened where we had a couple of school shootings. And men lost their lives. The children lost their lives too. So it's very sad. But it has to be argued how gun reform should be challenged or opposed. Now, you can't think of it, you have to think of it as a spectrum of different ideas to be approached. Blue is not good, red is not good, blue is not bad, red is not bad. They both have points that could circumvent how we operate completely. You can't just label one as good guy as bad guy, because both bring up points that could probably affect the way we survive in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So with that being said, gun reform, we are big on our guns. We believe in the Second Amendment completely. The argument that takes place is whether or not we should have more regulation on these guns, that it's too easy to operate. So the issue is How would you handle that regulation? What makes you think they should be more regulated? It's not the gun, it's the person. That's the idea that kind of follows with it. But you could apply the same thing to a blue ideology who supports immigrants. You want them to be there, but what if they bring drugs, crime, illegal dealings with them? So as much as you want both parties to work in tandem with another in Texas, you have to understand that both of them play a specific role in balancing the other person out when it comes to issues that they want to either encourage, promote awareness of, or fight for. So let's get a checklist of what we learned today. Liberalism, conservatism. Liberalism correlates with the blue party. Conservatism correlates with the red party, Democrat and Republican. They each play specific roles in certain issues in Texas. One of the most prominent ones being a real-life example, immigration for the blue and gun reform for the red. Both these Democrat can be defined as the need for government intervention, and Republican can be defined as traditional social values that should be followed to a T. Okay? If you're a fellow Texan and you're confused by these words, don't worry. Everybody is at one point. I hope you all learned something today. Thank you much. God bless Texas. And evolution bless Texas. Thank you very much.